Hi, I'm Brandon King for KTAR News.
And I'm Damon Allred.
Damon, 2023 has had a lot of movies, and a lot of things happen with those movies, and we probably could have done way longer than a top 5 for this, but we figured for the sake of the people, we'd probably just keep it pretty condensed on this.
Yeah, honestly, I had a hard time narrowing it down to just 5. We talked about, even this morning, I changed my top 5. So really a great year in movies and excited to talk about it.
And for context, we don't know each other's lists, so this will be fun. So let's go to the top 5.
All right.
Okay. I figured you might have Godzilla on here. Why is that your number 5?
So this Godzilla in particular, Godzilla Minus One, is just, I think, one of the best interpretations of Godzilla, just because the Godzilla is actually scary and you're actually feeling the fear that all the characters feel in it. Little World War II aftermath setting for when it takes place, and you really feel Japan like being exhausted from that, and just the whole kamikaze, like the guy that it's about is like a kamikaze who didn't do his job, and
right.
He gets shamed for it, and so like that's something that you really feel. It feels very real, and I don't think that happens very often in a Godzilla movie, and it also just looked sick. Like the CGI, I know it didn't have a huge budget, but most of the CGI looked incredible.
$15 million, reportedly.
And like the atomic breath was just outstanding. So I think it was a really good Godzilla movie in general.
Are you also a massive kaiju fan, or are you like me where you're like, I'm not really into Godzilla, but this was really damn great?
I mean, I think that they're fun, but I'm never expecting like a masterpiece like this one was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair. My number 5 is probably the most underseen movie on the list, which is Monster from Hirokazu Koreeda. We both actually picked Japanese films for number 5. Really good year for Japanese filmmaking this year.
Oh, yeah. Perfect Days, too.
Yeah, right. Which I haven't gotten to, but I've heard great things.
Same.
Basically, for anyone who doesn't know, this is... it's basically revolving around an event at school in modern-day Japan. You see perspectives from the mother of one of the students involved, from the teacher who's primarily involved, and then the boy who is involved in one of his best friends. I was not super familiar with Koreeda's work. He did a film called Shoplifters a number of years ago. So that was really exceptional, but I haven't followed a lot of his work. This was also the last film that Ryuichi Sakamoto did as a composer who I adore, and I was really enthralled by this. The structure of it is certainly reminiscent of something like Rashomon, where it's a inciting incident. You don't quite know who to believe. But what I love about it is how you and I kind of had a discussion earlier this week about films this year that play with your expectation as an audience member. This is the poster child for that. I say that as I'm pointing at the poster. But it really does enforce the idea of you start off this movie really firmly believing on the mother's side that like there is an injustice to be done, that there's that parental lineage, that sort of support system that needs to be held for kids like this. And then you get into the teacher story, and it seems to really delve into the kind of murkiness behind the situation more. But then when you get to the kids side, I don't want to say too much, but the way the whole film wraps up is rather stark and even beautiful in a lot of ways. And it's one of those movies where I hate to say like the common cliche of like go in knowing nothing, but like go in know very little.
Yeah, this is actually one that I haven't gotten a chance to see yet, but I'm looking forward to it after all the raving that you've done in just the last 20 seconds. So
yeah, it didn't get a large theatrical release, but if you get the chance, you please seek it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 4. We're both The Holdovers.
Let's go. Little Paul.
Okay.
Moment.
Why The Holdovers for you?
Well, so we talk a lot about first experience seeing movies. And this one, the first 20, 30 minutes or so just kind of felt like a drag. Wasn't really sure where it was going.
Right.
But once it really picked up with the Paul Giamatti, Dominic Sessa character relationship, and like the rest of the kids go off on their own separate things, like this movie cooks.
It really does. And that whole paradigm shift when the other kids depart from the movie for their various reasons, there's something, you're right, that switches up. Like the tone becomes a bit more, it becomes a bit murkier. Like it becomes harder to really relate to the characters more because there's few of them to latch onto. But then once you really see what Giamatti and Sessa and then eventually Divine Joy Randolph do with it, there's that really deep, tragic humanity to it that just doesn't let you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Divine Joy Randolph is greatly deserving of all the awards she's already won. She just puts on a masterclass of emotions. And I don't think very many actors throughout the year show the range of emotions that she shows. Just because some of the moments that she has in this movie just hit so hard, like in the kitchen at the party, that scene really hit hard.
Or heck, even the church scene where she has basically one line of dialogue and it's all physical emotion. She just nails every second and every nuance of it.
Yeah, she's great.
All right, on to number 3. Spider-Verse and Talk to Me. Why is Talk to Me your number 3? I haven't seen it because I'm a horror wimp, but please convince me.
So I wasn't going to have a top 5 that didn't have a horror movie, and I think that Talk to Me is far and away the best that 2023 had to offer. It's Australian, made and produced, and everything is Australian except for the A24 of it.
Right.
The Philippa brothers, coming from YouTube fame to...
Did you know their YouTube stuff before this, or...?
I wasn't familiar with it, but I knew that that's where they had come from.
Okay. I wasn't either. I just seen the interviews from them. They seem like the weirdest group of guys ever, but I kind of love them.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of their YouTube stuff is like satirical or parodying off bigger IP. Now they've kind of developed their own IP because later in the Philippa brothers' career, we're going to get a Talk to Me, which is really exciting. I think Sophia Wilde gives one of the better horror performances that I've seen ever, frankly, in this movie. And I think that a lot of the themes, like the substance abuse themes, are really, really important. And it's also just some of the scariest stuff that I've seen in a long time, truthfully.
It's a movie that I've heard really relies on the sheer uneasiness of it all, the sheer just really stark atmosphere of it, as opposed to just the jump scariness of it.
Yeah, but they also do such a good job of creating these super high highs. Like there's just a party scene toward the beginning that is just electric. Like you wish you were there, and in a lot of ways you feel like you're there, and when it turns, you really feel like you're there.
Right. I picked Spider-Verse for number 3. Probably the opposite of Talk to Me in most ways.
Yeah.
Although it is chilling at points, I would argue. I adored the first Spider-Verse movie. It was my runner-up for 2018 Film of the Year, and I was really curious to see how on earth Across the Spider-Verse could. Nope. Yeah, it's just as good, if not slightly better. It throws everything at the screen at you, and somehow all of it works. I cannot give Kemp Powers and Joaquin Dos Santos and Justin Thompson, that whole team, enough praise for this movie. The animators should get raises beyond raises. Some of the stuff that is on screen, this is beyond imagination. And even just looking at it from a Spider-Man point of view, the idea of really establishing Miles as a completely different character from Peter, really almost as separate as they could possibly make him in this version, as opposed to the first one, which was one of my minor quarrels with that film. Daniel Pemberton's score is out of this world good. It should win the Oscar. And it's just phenomenal. It might be too much for some people, but I saw this 3 times in theaters and I love it every single time.
Yeah, to your point about the animators should get raises, there's a kid animated one of the
scenes with the Lego bit,
which just looks just as seamless as the rest of the movie. So that kid did an excellent job. I hope he gets more opportunities in his future. I think that it's a really cool idea that just as a kid making stuff on YouTube, you can get put into a dream scenario, not to reference any other movies this year, but of really working on one of the biggest, not to call it a kid's movie, but for it to be an animated movie that's probably a kid's dream to be a part of.
Well, we'll see if Dream Scenario is on your list. Let's go to number 2, because otherwise I'll keep talking about Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Anatomy of a Fall and Poor Things. Poor Things is probably in my top 10. I couldn't put it in my top 5, spoiler alert, but...
Yeah, Poor Things, I just saw it again last night, and I liked it even better the second time. I think it's Your Skin...
Fendrix, yes. The music made me cry. It actually made me cry.
Away. There were 3 scores that blew me away this year, and this is one of them. And Emma Stone, shout out to her, Scottsdale raised.
Arizona native.
Also, Greek director and former pro basketball player Yorgos Lanthimos.
I forgot he was a basketball player.
Yeah, this is another collaboration between them. I think they're kind of becoming like a little bit of a Scorsese De Niro.
After The Favorite in 2018 and whatever that next film they're doing is, but yes.
I think Emma Stone is so good. She's maybe one of the best acting performances of the year. I think that the actress in your number 2 might be even a little bit better. But like the moments where she says, "We are our own means of production," in reference to the brothel, or like when she's talking about how confusing and complex Mark Ruffalo's jealousy is. Like, those scenes are just hilarious to me. I think that the whole movie works.
Or even just in how unapologetic she is. Like,
Yeah.
it's a performance where, you know, but I'll talk about Sandra Hüller in a minute, but like her and Lily Gladstone and Greta Lee have delivered phenomenal performances this year. But I think Emma Stone is the most all-encompassing, which I think will go along with award season, as we've seen with the Golden Globes and everything. But I think what she is able to do on screen is nothing less than a tour de force in what she's able to do with her body, her mannerisms, everything that she brings on screen, and what Yorgos is really able to pull out, and Tony McNamara as the screenwriter, who kind of work in this incredibly perfect trifecta of just character, writer, and director.
Yeah, I honestly think it's her Oscar to lose at this point, but would also appreciate it if the star of Anatomy of a Fall got some consideration as well. What did you like about that one?
I love Anatomy of a Fall so much. Like, we were literally talking about this a couple days ago, and what I love about it is that if it was just a courtroom drama, which, again, for those of you who may not have seen it, woman and her husband and their young son are out in basically the snowbound wilderness. One day, the husband falls off a roof, dies. Everyone naturally suspects the wife, and thus leads to, in my opinion, one of the most engrossing court dramas of the year, where also the complications that the son is blind and was the only witness to the father falling. So becomes a kind of who's who mystery thing, but in really gripping detail. Like, this is a movie that, like Monster, doesn't hold anything back with its characters. All of them are flawed in some way. All of them are flawed to themselves, to others, to the world around them. And I have to give credit to Justine Triet, who I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. My French is terrible. But I think she does a magnificent job with both the writing and directing with this, and just establishing the mood of, again, if it was just a courtroom drama and just establishing that you don't know for sure where this is going to go, you know that eventually someone has to get punished for this. Throw all of that out, because the movie kind of, again, plays with the idea of innocence as an end game kind of thing, but it also plays with the idea of, you know, photography and video and audio, things that, you know, really the impressions that we really get from people when they're not directly in front of us, or if we didn't directly know them. And all of that is channeled by Sandra Hüller, who I haven't seen Zone of Interest yet, and I've heard she's even better than that, and I can't imagine, because she's so freaking excellent in this, as is Milo Machado Grainer, who is the young blind son. Both of them are two of my favorite performances of the year, and the scenes they get together are the most tender moments in a film that is constantly amping up the energy of, these are people who won't get to see each other again for a long time, for better or worse, who don't even really know if they want to see each other again at a certain point. The supporting cast are all phenomenal. The cinematography is awe-inspiring. Like, it is really one of those perfect package movies that I cannot recommend enough.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes here. Anatomy of a Fall was actually my 6th. That just didn't quite make the cut.
I understand.
And the Milo performance is, I said this the other night, but it's my favorite child performance since Julia Butters in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, we kind of made the joke of, like, Jacob Tremblay, Julia Butters, Milo Machado Green.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to number 1, favorite of the year.
Here we go.
Past Lives in Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I gave my spiel on Spider-Verse. Please give yours.
So I watched the first one again last night. I've seen the second one already over 10 times.
Really?
Yeah. I just cannot get enough of it. I've mentioned to you that I feel like the first one is proof of concept of the idea that they want to go with, and the second one is just them really going for it. Neither one of them ever fail to make me uncontrollably weep when I'm watching them. I just get overwhelmed with the visuals and the character storytelling. It's all so good to me. That first scene where Miles and Gwen are swinging through Brooklyn, like, it's electric.
Oh, to Hummingbird and... Yeah.
Yeah. And just going throughout the movie, when you meet all the different Spider-Men, Miguel O'Hara, Oscar Isaac, one of the best
villains of the year.
Yeah, one of the best superhero villains as well of all time, I'd say.
Yes.
The twist at the end is incredible, and going back to watch the first one again, having seen the second one so many times, there are all these little Easter eggs that they drop in the first one about the twist at the very end of the second one.
Right.
And it's just so amazing to see how this, what will eventually be a trilogy, is coming together. I cannot wait for the third one. I know I'm going to have to, because it got delayed from this March into 2025. So we will wait, yes. And it's unfortunate, but I will be seated.
Completely well said. And I think what you said about seeing Spider-Verse so many times and being overwhelmed every time is how I felt watching Past Lives only twice. It is a gripping movie. I reviewed it actually on the TikTok page if any of you want to go check that out. But I echo my thoughts from that review, where it's a movie about memory and knowledge and connection that doesn't, again, villainize anything except for time. And even then, that's a bit of a stretch to call it that. But I think it is anchored by... Again, I love the holdovers trifecta of Giamonti and Randolph and Seza, but the trifecta here of Greta Lee, John Magaro, and Teo Yu is my favorite three-peat of the year, if you want to call it that. And again, just on technical level, Celine Song really knows how to make every distinct time period from the three make sense in terms of the visual style with Shamir Kershir, the cinematographer, between the music, between this kind of hazy notion, something like Priscilla actually did kind of similar way, but not necessarily to the emotional degree that I wanted, where Past Lives is that thing of it always feels longing to be somewhere else, and it really goes to the idea of where we as people sometimes always have that notion of not just nostalgia, but the idea of the future and what that can bring and the people that we love and when we care about them. But what if those people aren't in our lives? What if, they start to change? What if we don't quite understand them? What will our life mean with those people who we loved so dearly and connected with so dearly, not a part of it anymore? And I think Past Lives examines all of those questions in ways that are identifiable to every character, but also identifiable to us as the audience, and that never feel too out of commission with what the actual story is. Like, it still very much follows an ABC structure, but it does so in kind of this wavy, ethereal way that is not going to be for everyone. I've heard from a select few people who really didn't latch onto it, but if you are willing to just sit with it and really establish yourself as like, oh yeah, like I was Greta Lee's character. Like, I went off and did my own thing, at the detriment to maybe people around me. Oh, I was Teo Yu's character. I kind of grew up after someone I really care about move away. Oh, I'm John Magaro's character. Like, I have a connection with someone, and that someone has an entire other being from their past life that I don't really know about or understand, and I can never really hope to understand. If you have been any one of those people, Past Lives is the most resonant movie of the year, and I stand by that. Yeah,
it's great. And moving even beyond our top fives, I feel like we can't do this video without talking about Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Sure, yes.
For the event that it was, and how it really, I think, pushed what movies can be forward in a lot of ways in terms of event movie going, and just the power that or the symbiotic relationship that they both had on each other. I don't think Oppenheimer makes as much as it does without Barbie. I don't think Barbie makes as much as it does without Oppenheimer. We talk about like the people that we were sitting with on opening night.
Right.
You could hear talking about the other movie too and things like that. I ended up actually seeing Oppenheimer twice in a 24-hour span because I liked it so much. Yeah. Did Oppenheimer in 70mm IMAX, then Barbie, and then the next morning Oppenheimer again.
Where, if you had to estimate, would either be on your list?
I would say that Barbie would be higher on my favorites list, but Oppenheimer would be higher on my best list if we were going to distinguish it that way.
Oppenheimer is in my top 10. Up until about a month ago, I would have said very confidently Barbie was in my 10. I think now it's in the 15.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not a detriment to either one, because I think, as you said, purely the ambition of both movies is, I think, more than most filmmakers could really dream of. I think we can both agree on that. But I think even just the audience expectation and the idea of those two movies of all movies, a 3-hour biographical epic and what is essentially a toy brand commercial in some ways, but really driving forward real characters, real heft, real technical prowess to them, and really making compelling stories that people really latch on to in a symbiotic fashion. I think that's something that we just don't see, and I'm glad you brought it up.
And also just the element of like two really pillars of directing in Christopher Nolan and Greta Gerwig,
along
completely. With two incredible lead actors in Cillian Murphy and Margot Robbie.
Yes.
Like, I don't think either one has the success that they do without those elements as well.
And the parallels, like, both great ensemble characters, both, great individual supporting performances, both great cinematography, like
both great music as well.
To varying degrees, but yes.
Yeah. I think I'm Just Ken should win the Best Original Song Oscar, by the way, just because it's a character in the movie that is singing the song. And I think that's a prerequisite for the award.
And I think What Was I Made For should win. So we're both Team Barbie, but on the opposite ways.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. Go ahead and subscribe to KTAR News on YouTube. Go ahead and follow at KTAR News on TikTok for more movie reviews if you're curious to see more of the two of us talking. Cheers in 2024. And let us know what your favorite movies are as well. Have a good day.
And go see movies.
Go see movies.